ಹಾ ಸರ್.
ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ
ಹಾ
ದಿಲೀಪ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರೋದು.
ಹಾ ಹೇಳಿ. ಹೌದಾ, ಅದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಲೋ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರು, ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
ನಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಾ ಲಿಂಕ್?
ನೀವು ಹೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತಾ? ನೀವು ಹೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತಾ? ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ. ಅದು ಸೊ ಗೀತಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಲ್ಲ ನನಗ್ ಕೊಡಿ, ನಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಗೀತಾ ಮಾಡ್ರೇಟರ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಲೇಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ 3:25. ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ರು ಇದೇ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗಿ ಸ್ಟಕ್ ಆದ್ರ ಅಂತ.
ಹೌದು ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಹಾ, ಎಲ್ರು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ ತಿರ್ಗಿ.
ಓಕೆ, ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್.
ಹಾ ಹೇಳಿ 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 ಮೇಡಮ್.
ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಹಾ, ದಿವ್ಯದರ್ಶಿನಿ ಜಾಯಿಂಡ್. ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ?
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರು ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ದಿಲೀಪ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವ್ರ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಬರೀ ಒಂದ್ 15 ಜನ ಇದೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ನೀವು. ಸೊ ಕೋವೋಸ್ಟ್ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ,
ಬಿಡಿ.
ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು.
ಲೆಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಬಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ ಬೇಡ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಗೀತಾ? ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ.
ಬೇಡ ಬಿಡಿ. ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ?
ಅದು ನೀವು ಇವರು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ವಿದ್ಯಾ ಅವರು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶೇರಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ನೀವು
ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ?
ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್, ನಾವೇ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇವಿ.
ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ಆ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಆದಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಗೀತಾ, ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್.
Hari Om Dhanvantari. Good afternoon and warm welcome to all for the 10th webinar series of Ross Group on breast cancer. Today we have eminent speaker Dr. Vidya with us. So we'll begin the session with prayer by Dr. Veena. Over to you, Dr. Veena.
Thank you, ma'am. Om Ganeshaya Namaha. Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyaye Sarvavidnopashantaye. Hari Om Dhanvantarim Namami Dhanvantarim Adidevam Surasurairvandita Padapadmam Aramesham Vividaushadinam Dhanvantarim Ramanatham Sarvaroganivarakam Ayurveda Pravaktaram Vande Piyushadayakam Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Veena. Now I would like to request Dr. Shakuntala Madam to give introduction about our Ross Group.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta. I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. Vidya for accepting our invitation. Welcome, Dr. Vidya, to Ross Seminar Group. So Ross is created in 2019 December with the intention of connecting Ayurvedic doctors and Ayurvedic oncophysicians and to the cancer sufferers.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am. With the intention of building a network in between Ayurvedic doctors, Ayurvedic oncophysician, and as well as cancer sufferers. So it is having another intention like updating research paper related in Ayurvedic cancer. So and prepare a potent medicines which are mentioned in our classics for through Ross group. Three actually three teams are working behind continuously. They are Ross members. One is Sampark group which contacts Ayurvedic doctors. They are searching for doctors, oncophysicians, and group members are Dr. Sanjay Patil, Dr. Matpati, Dr. Raju Shirol, Dr. Suresh, and Dr. Datta Prasad and Dr. Geeta Puttur. Seminar group is Gurukul group, which conducts seminars, and Dr. Geeta Puttur, Dr. Divya Darshini, and Dr. Veena Kulkarni are the team members. And Dr. Aditya Acharya. And I want to thank Dr. Dilip Kumar for his continuous support. Myself, Dr. Shakuntala Patil, creator of Ross Group. Thank you once again and welcome once again, Dr. Vidya. Over to Dr. Geeta. Geeta?
Thank you, Dr. Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shakuntala ma'am. Now, Dr. Amulya will introduce today's speaker. Over to you, Dr. Amulya.
Thank you, ma'am. Hari Om Dhanvantari. A very good afternoon to one and all. It's a pleasure to welcome and introduce our eminent speaker for today, Dr. Vidya, on behalf of Ross Group. We are very glad that Dr. Vidya has accepted our invitation to share her knowledge on breast cancer in today's session. So Dr. Vidya has done her MBBS graduation from Vaidhi Institute of Medical Sciences in 2009. Later, she has done her DMRT from Bangalore Medical College and Research Center in 2016, after which she has done her DNP in Radiation Oncology from Sri Shankara Cancer Hospital and Research Center in 2021. She has worked as junior resident in MICU at Apollo Hospitals, Bangalore. Later, she has worked as junior resident in General Medicine in RRMCH Hospital, Bangalore. She has worked as senior resident in Radiation Oncology Department at Sri Shankara Cancer Hospital and Research Center. During her DMRT residency, she has worked as diploma resident at Bangalore Medical College for 2 years, which also includes 3 months of peripheral postings at Kidwai Memorial Institute of Oncology, Bangalore. She is experienced both in 2D and 3D planning. She has performed planned treatments of brachytherapy independently. So today on this online platform, she'll be throwing light on a technical discussion on breast cancer with her experience. So I wish everyone a very successful and fruitful session for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amulya. Now I request Dr. Vidya to start today's session. Over to you, Dr. Vidya.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I get the screen sharing, please?
Dilip sir, please start the screen sharing. Dr. Dilip sir. Shakuntala ma'am. Yeah.
ಅವ್ರ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ದಿಲೀಪ್ ಸರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ
Yes ma'am. Now we can.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅದು ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್?
ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್.
ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು ಈಗ ಹೋಗಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ಅದೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ
ಒಂದ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ನೋಡಿ.
ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
Yes. Now everyone can mute their mics, please.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to present about breast cancer. Coming to the introduction of the cancer develops from a cell in which the normal mechanisms for control of the growth and proliferation will be altered. The concept of carcinogenesis basically is a multi-stage process, and basically it is regulated with genetic genes, basically. Here you can see the mutation wherein the tumor suppressor genes like P53, RB gene and all get mutated, and this leads to increased proliferation of the cells, and thereby there is mutation, there is inability of the DNA to get repaired, and thereby multiplication of the cancer cells. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನು.
Dilip sir, next slide. Yeah.
Sir,
Tumors may
ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
arise from any of the four basic
Yeah.
tissue types.
Yes,
That
yes.
is epithelial
Yeah.
tissue, for example, soft tissue, squamous cell carcinoma of the head and neck, or basal cell carcinoma of the skin. One more slide. Yes, sir, this side. And from connective tissue, it may arise from the muscle, bone, and cartilage. For example, soft tissue sarcoma, osteosarcoma, and lymphoid tissue. You can see Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and from nerve tissue, schwannoma can arise. Next slide. Coming to the differences, one more slide, black.
Ma'am, sorry to disturb you, ma'am. In between, your voice is breaking. Audio is not clear, ma'am. Vidya, ma'am. Vidya, ma'am. Your voice is breaking, ma'am. In between, audio is missing in between, ma'am.
I think there's a network issue actually. Of this slide, can I just zoom it, sir? Put it in the slide share mode. ಸರಿ ಬಟ್ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನೇ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಲಿಪ್ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ನನಗೆ. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for technical issues, ma'am. Yeah, I'll just start off
Yeah.
with this. Coming to the differences, we have benign tumors and malignant tumors. Benign tumors, they are very small, they are very slow growing, and they are non-invasive, they are well differentiated and very localized. That is, they don't have the capability of invading the tissues or metastasizing. Whereas malignant tissues, they are large, fast growing, they are very much invasive and poorly differentiated, and they have very much capability of metastasize, wherein they infiltrate the tissues and also spread to the other parts of the body. Next slide. Coming to the epidemiology of breast cancer, it's the most common cancer excluding that of the skin among women in the US, with a lifetime risk of almost 12%. Approximately, we have invasive cancer of 2,31,840 cases, and in situ cases are about 60,290 cases. And it's the second leading cause of cancer deaths in women after lung in US. That is about 40,290 deaths per year. Next slide. Coming to the incidence in India and the world, we can see the red mark wherein it shows in the all over the world. According to 2020 Globacon, it says that breast is the most common cancer we see among both the sexes. And coming to the left side, we have a bar diagram which shows again in India, according to 2018 Globacon. Again, here also the breast is the most common cancer we see among both the sexes. Next slide. Coming to the anatomy, the borders we have is medial and lateral borders of the breast tissue is the sternum and mid-axillary line. Cranial and caudal borders are the second anterior rib and sixth anterior rib. And lymphatic drainage, we have axillary lymph nodes, internal mammary lymph nodes, and supraclavicular lymph nodes. The axillary lymph nodes is divided into 3 levels by a pectoralis minor muscle. Next slide, please. This is the diagram which shows the pectoralis major muscle, and beneath is pectoralis minor muscle, and also the internal thoracic vein, the lobules, and suspensory ligaments. And it also shows the one more diagram which shows serratus anterior muscle and external oblique muscle, which shows if in case there is infiltration of these tissues, it goes into stage 4 directly. Next slide. As I said, the axillary lymph nodes are divided into 3 levels. That is, level 1 is low axillary lymph nodes, that is inferior and lateral to the pectoralis minor muscle. Level 2 is nodes directly beneath the muscle, and level 3 is nodes superior or medial to the muscle. In level 2, we have Roter's lymph nodes, which is in between the pectoralis major and minor muscles, and also they are known as interpectoral nodes. And the one more important nodes are the internal mammary lymph nodes, which is located just adjacent to the sternum from 1st to 5th intercostal space, and about 3 to 3.5 centimeters from the midline. If internal mammary lymph nodes are present, the patient directly goes into stage 3, and the prognosis is very bad. Next slide. Again, this diagram which shows the lymph node positions, that is apical, lateral, central, posterior, and pectoral. And the one more diagram shows the lymph nodes, the major muscle, that is pectoralis major muscle. One more slide, back slide, sir. No, sir, previous slide. One more previous slide. Yeah. It shows in relation, that is level 1, 2, and 3, which you can see the level 1 is the beneath the nodes, which in the green color. One on the red is the level 2 nodes, that is beneath the pectoralis muscle, and one in the blue color is the level 3 nodes, that is above and medial to the pectoralis major muscle. Next slide, please. This is the diagram which shows complete lymphatic drainage, that is supraclavicular nodes, level 1, 2, 3 axillary lymph nodes, and internal mammary nodes, that is near the adjacent sternum. When internal mammary lymph nodes are there, they can, are enlarged. You have the more chances of contralateral breast cancer coming into picture, and patients, even though the patient gets complete treatment also, the chances of contralateral breast cancer and also ipsilateral breast cancer recurrence can happen in the near future, maybe around 2 to 3 years. Next slide, please. This is the risk factors what we can discuss about. That is hereditary, basically with BRCA1 and 2 mutations, lifestyle changes like alcohol consumption and smoking, age-related factors like older the age, the chances of breast cancer is more. But in age, only exclusion criteria is in when patients have BRCA mutations, their chances of getting breast cancer in young age only, that is about 25-30 years only, the chances of getting breast cancer. And coming to obesity, because of obesity, the increased hormones can also cause breast cancer. And pregnancy and breastfeeding, what you can see shows that if in case you patient are with nulliparous or those who doesn't breastfeed, they have the more chances of getting breast cancer. And diabetes and hypertension play an indirect role in the breast cancer, and hormones also play a direct role in the breast cancer. And you can see the stages also, that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Stage 1 is wherein the tumor is confined to the breast and very small in size. Stage 2 is, you can see that you have a lump in the breast, and also the axillary lymph nodes are there, but the lump in the breast is not in much bigger size. Stage 3, what you can see is the lump in the breast is very much bigger in size, and there is also lymph node involvement. And the stage 4, what you can see is metastasis, wherein the disease has spread to the adjacent organs, bones, everywhere, which is very, the prognosis is very bad. And what are the symptoms you can manage? I mean, you can get to know is you have to, the patient can come with the symptoms of lump in the breast or nipple discharge, which can be either serous discharge or mucus discharge or just plain watery discharge or blood also. And they can also come without lump in the breast. They can come in the lymph. I mean, they can come as a complaint of swelling in the axilla, that is beneath the underarms. That they can present with that also. Or patient with advanced stages, they have huge breast mass which can infiltrate the skin and chest wall muscles also. Or else they can present at the later stages of the disease, wherein the disease would have spread already to the brain, and also skeletal metastasis would have happened, that is vertebral metastasis, wherein they present with complaints of, in case would have been brain, they come with the complaints of headache, dizziness, nausea, vomiting. And when it comes into complaint of vertebral metastasis, they come with complaints of backache. So with all these symptoms, you assess the patient's condition and the stage, and therefore we go for the treatment management. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Coming to the workup, plus what breast cancer, we see assess the risk factors. That is the patient, whether earlier the patient had breast cancer symptoms like in situ hyperplasia and all, which comes with the histopathology diagnosis. We ask for clinical self-examination, and then we go forward. And gynecological history, we ask whether the patients have any bleeding history, bleeding per vagina, either postmenopausal or premenopausal, in between intermenstrual bleeding or postcoital bleeding, because with BRCA mutations, there are chances of other tumors also associated, like ovarian cancer or endometrial cancer. And menopausal status we see because post surgery and radiation, we have to give hormonal treatment for the patients. So whether the patients have attained menopause or not, depending upon that, we give the medications for them. And general physical exam, because if in case they are cardiac patients, we have certain restrictions for the chemotherapy and also radiotherapy. And breast examination as such, we have to assess the tumor size, how much the tumor dimension is, and satellite is like what satellite nodules, because in the sense patient can have skin nodules on the chest wall, either can be on the same side as that of the patient presented with lump, or it can be on the contralateral side. When they present with satellite nodules, it directly goes into the stage 4. And we assess the skin of the patient also. In the sense, we try to pinch the skin over the lump and the breast. And if in case it is not pinchable, then it is called stage. Hello? Able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm not able to see the slides, ma'am.
Now they have, yes,
Yeah,
now you can.
Yeah. Chest wall also, if in case there is infiltration of the chest wall muscles, directly it goes into the stage 4. And nipple changes, you see whether there is any retraction of the nipple and any bleeding discharge from the nipple or any serous discharge. And symmetry, we see assess the breast patients, both the bilateral breast, and see whether the breast is symmetry, or there is hanging of the breast, or it is pulling. In case the patient would have presented with one side of the breast would have been pulled up, it shows that there is lump in the breast, and at the same time there is involvement of the chest wall muscles, and indirectly goes into stage 4. And lymph node examinations, we do axillary lymph node examination, that is underarms we do, and supraclavicular lymph nodes, that is above the clavicle, and infraclavicular is below the clavicle. And biopsy is done as soon as the patient comes. We go into ask the patient to get digital mammogram, and then we ask for ultrasound guided biopsy, which gives us the information whether it is a ductal carcinoma, lobular carcinoma, or invasive carcinoma. With that, we also get the immunohistochemistry, that is IHC markers we tell. It is called ER, PR, Artinu, and Ki67. With this ER, PR receptor studies, we get to know what the patient prognosis is, and also Artinu status also. And the Ki67, what I have mentioned, that shows the proliferative index, in the sense if Ki67 is on the higher side, suppose about 70-80%, it shows that the disease is proliferating very fast, and the prognosis is also bad, and the treatment doesn't respond well. In case Ki67 is very less, kind of about 20%, it shows that the disease is as good prognosis, and also the patient can respond well to the treatment. And routinely we do CBC and blood chemistries and liver functions. This is for basically for the chemotherapy also, and to assess the anemic status of the patient also. Next slide, please. And chest X-ray we do for metastatic workup, like in case patient has lung metastasis, with chest X-ray we do. And if in case you can make out any metastasis in the chest X-ray, we can go into CT scan of the thorax. And breast imaging, we do ultrasonogram also, which shows us the different, ultrasonogram basically helps us in biopsy also. At the same time, it helps in assessing the lymph nodes, and also how much is the breast tissue involved. And also the contralateral breast staging also can be done with breast imaging. And bone scan, PET CT, and MRI, we do usually for the patients about stage 2B. That is bone scan because of metastasis to any skeletal, that is basically humeral or vertebral metastasis. And brain imaging is done, and we prefer in brain imaging, MRI is better preferred than brain CT scan, which shows the brain metastasis. And also PET CT has such overall for patients with more than stage 2B, because in more than stage 2B, we usually give chemotherapy, that is neoadjuvant chemotherapy. That is neoadjuvant chemotherapy is wherein you give treatment chemotherapy before the surgery, and you assess the stage of the disease with PET CT, and then the patient will go for the surgery and then radiation therapy. That is neoadjuvant chemotherapy decreases the size of the tumor, and also it helps in preventing the patient distant metastasis of the disease as such. And we also do histological assessment of the breast system, like in sense, like if in case the patient would have gone for a breast conservation surgery, like this, it's called BCS. That is also done properly, whether there is positive margins or the lymph nodes involved is completely, how much percentage of the lymph nodes is involved, and what then can be the treatment per se. And ultrasound guide, if any of the suspicious nodes, suppose patient comes with the lymph nodes, but there's no disease in that. So this says that how much percentage of the lymph nodes is involved. Suppose clinically the patient doesn't have lymph nodes, you can have 30% of the patients can, after surgery, they can present 30% with positive lymph nodes. And in the sense, like we would have missed it. If in case patients clinically present with lymph nodes, there are 20 to 40% chances of patient doesn't have lymph nodes, but that can be reactive lymph nodes or anything due to infection as such. Next slide, please. Coming to the screening, which is very important in breast cancer. Screening yields about 20 to 35% of the decrease in breast cancer mortality between the ages of 50 to 69 years, and it has very less impact on patients from 40 to 49 years. Approximately 10% of all breast cancers are mammographically occult, in the sense they can't be made out. And clinically breast exam every 1 to 3 years it has to be done, and periodic self-exam is generally recommended beginning in young adulthood. Annually, clinical breast examination and screening mammography is done and recommended in the United States at about age of 40-50 years. But in India, we usually ask the patients to get a mammography done after about 40 years. And especially in patients with less than 25-30 years, we ask them to get self-examination also and clinical examination also, and mammography with MRI if in case the patients had genetic history of breast cancer, in the sense in the first degree relatives, like either the mother or the sister or the daughter, if they would have presented with breast cancer, we ask them to get a screening mammography done and also MRI done, and also we assess for BRCA mutations. Next slide, please. What I said, screening mammography with MRI, it should begin in high-risk population. What are the high-risk population? That is prior thoracic radiation. That is called, for example, mantle field radiation. This radiation is given for patients with Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In the sense, patient would have presented at the age of 18 or 20 years with lymphoma, which is a type of tumor of lymphoid tissues. And for that, we have to give chemotherapy and also radiation. So when that patients would have already got radiation, there are chances of, as radiation is a risk of for cancer, so they have chances of developing cancer in the earlier stage. So for them, we have to do screening mammography and also MRI. And genetic predisposition is for the patients who would have BRCA mutations, and also with certain syndromes like called Li-Fraumeni syndrome and also Cowden syndrome, who are more prone for both breast cancer also, ovarian cancer also, and endometrial cancer also. And strong family history, as I said, if the first degree relatives, that is patients with mother or like sister or siblings would have got, and daughter also would have got a family history of breast cancer, then we suggest them to get mammography also done, and with that MRI of the breast also to be done. And if patients would have had earlier a prior history of lobular carcinoma or atypical hyperplasia, we ask them to get mammography and MRI done. Next slide, please. This is a data system which also called as BIRAT score. Depending upon this score, we assess the patient's criteria and also the prognosis and also what the patient further management is. It's called as breast imaging reporting and data system. BIRAT 0 category, when patient comes, that is called as assessment is not not sufficient. So we ask them to get further mammograms and we have to compare with it. When it is BIRAT score 0, it shows that it is negative, and we again continue routine screening. In case on mammography it shows BIRAT 2, it chases benign finding, and again continue routine screening, that every 6 months we ask them for follow-up and ask them to get mammogram done. And if in case the BIRAT score is 3, there are 2% likelihood of the patient getting, the cancer being there. So we ask them for short-term follow-up that every 6 months, and again every 6 to 12 months for 1 to 2 years. We ask them to get mammogram, and if required, MRI to be done. And importantly, after 4, the clinical treatment begins. In case patient has clinical BIRAT score of 4, patients have chances of having suspicious of malignancy, and that also we have 4A, 4B, and 4C, which shows a 2 to 10% of likelihood of cancer, and moderate is about 10 to 50% likelihood of cancer, and 50 to 95% of very high risk of cancer. So for these patients, we perform needle biopsy, and then after biopsy, when the report comes, then we go about for the further management of the case. And when the BIRAT score is 5, this is like highly likelihood of malignancy, and biopsy and treatment has to be done. And BIRAT 6 is usually all patients will go for treatment with surgery and also radiation and chemotherapy. Next slide. IHC markers, as I had said earlier, it is called as immunohistochemistry markers. When the biopsy tissue is taken, we first categorize whether it is a ductal carcinoma or lobular carcinoma, and after that we classify these patients into hormonal status, that is whether ERPR positive or Artinio positive patients. It's classified into 4 classifications molecularly. The subtypes are luminal A, luminal B, basal-like, and Artinio positive. When the subtype is luminal A, it is ERPR positive and Artinio negative. When the subtype is luminal B, it is called as ERPR positive and also Artinio positive. And when the subtype is basal-like, it is all the 3 are negative, and which has very poor prognosis. And these patients will go into metastasis at an earlier stage of the treatment only. In the sense, suppose patient would have got surgery done and they would have started with chemotherapy, and immediately they would have come with metastasis during the time of the treatment of chemotherapy only. They would have presented with either brain metastasis or skeletal metastasis. So the triple negative has a very poor prognosis. And one more subtype is Artinio positive, wherein the hormonal status is negative, that is ERPR is negative, but the patient should have had Artinio positive. For these patients, they would receive, I mean, chemotherapy doesn't work for them. So we usually give a targeted therapy called trastuzumab, which I will discuss in the next class. And Artinio amplification is a negative prognostication in both mastectomy and BCT cohorts. Means, if in case Artinio is positive, it shows like triple negative. Even this shows like it has negative impact on both patients who have undergone breast conserving therapy and also mastectomy therapy. Next slide, please. Pathology, we have three different pathologies like ductal carcinoma in situ, lobular carcinoma in situ, and invasive ductal carcinoma. Coming to the ductal carcinoma in situ, it comprises about 20% of all breast cancers, and 1/3 of the patients with ductal carcinoma in situ over a period of 10 years can go into invasive disease. And mortality risk is about just 10% with recurrence if in case the treatment is not done properly. And if in case we have ductal carcinoma, we have two components in that is high grade and low grade. When it is high grade, the disease is continuous in nature, in the sense it would have involved the entire tissue as such. And in them, 25% of the patients would have got hormonal status as positive, that is ER positive, estrogen receptor positive. And if in case the patients would have had low grade type of ductal carcinoma, these patients wouldn't have presented with continuous disease, but there is like multifocality in the sense when the breast cancer is, breast is divided into 4 different quadrants. It shows like they could have presented with each different quadrants at multifocal points. And these people would have had 90% of ER positive. In the sense they respond more to the hormonal treatment than that of the chemotherapy. Next slide, please. This is the diagram which shows ductal carcinoma in situ. In the sense we have in the breast we have lobules also and also ducts also. So in ductal carcinoma in situ, the ducts which the mammary gland with the ducts which secretes the milk outside, the duct whatever is involved, the normal duct and the abnormal cells which multiply inside the ducts and causes the tumor per se. When it is in the earlier stage, it is ductal carcinoma. In the invasive stage, it is like the entire basal epithelium and also the entire duct would have been blocked with the cancer cells. Next slide, please. This is lobular carcinoma in situ. It's a marker. This is a carcinoma which presents with usually bilateral breast cancer. It has very good prognosis, but the thing is like patient would have had a cosmetic effect would have been bad because they would have lost both the breast for the stage. For the surgery basically. And in them we can see 12% of them present with in situ disease, and in these patients they have chances of getting ipsilateral or contralateral cancer over the lifetime of about 20 to 25%. So usually when the patient present with lobular carcinoma, we usually go for bilateral mastectomy. This is both the breast will be removed completely, and they are mammographically silent in the sense when you get a mammograph done, usually we can't see the disease per se. And these patients, they have when you do the IHC markers, they usually will be ER/PR positive and also Hartinio negative. Next slide, please. This is the lobular carcinoma diagram which shows the lobules. Earlier I had shown ductal carcinoma wherein the ducts were being involved. Here the lobular carcinoma is wherein the normal lobules, the structure, and also the lobular carcinoma is in the sense the abnormal cells would have completely infiltrated the lobules. Next slide, please. This is the infiltrating ductal carcinoma. Is the most common type which is seen of about 85% of the cases. And the ductal carcinoma in situ will progress over a period of time over 10 years into infiltrating ductal carcinoma, and lobular carcinoma will go in and progress into invasive lobular carcinoma over a period of time. And these lobular carcinoma, as I said earlier, it is usually bilateral in nature and also multifocal in nature. And we have when you do a IHC marker, we also do a IHC study with E-cadherin. It distinguishes between whether the patient has ductal carcinoma in situ or lobular carcinoma in situ, or whether it is invasive ductal carcinoma or invasive lobular carcinoma. So this E-cadherin helps us in differentiating whether the patient has what type of tumor, and also thereby we can move with the treatment forward. Because in invasive ductal carcinoma, we have to give patient with surgery followed by radiation and chemotherapy. Whereas for lobular carcinoma in situ, patients usually go for surgery, and that's all. There's no further management required for these patients. Ultimately, we do bilateral breast mastectomy, and the patient will be on regular follow-up. That's it. And in endometrial carcinoma, we have further subtypes called labular carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, and mucinous carcinomas. These have very good, better prognosis when patient has been treated with chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Next slide, please. This is the staging what I'm going to discuss now. The recent staging called, it's like AJCC, it's called American Journal of Cancer Committee. It is in the 8th edition, the most recent one. Now, this is the one. What I'll discuss now is the tumor staging, that is T staging. We have T category and T criteria. TX is primary tumor cannot be assessed, in the sense patient would have got earlier the tumor removed outside elsewhere, and the patient would have come with you presented with axillary lymph nodes. So that patients will go into TX criteria. T0 is no evidence of primary tumor, in the sense you don't have the tumor, in the sense disease in the breast lump, and patient may present with lymph nodes in the axilla or supraclav or internal mammary. And we have two other components in situ, that is TIS, that is DCIS, and also Paget's disease. DCIS is, as I discussed earlier, it is ductal carcinoma in situ, and TIS Paget's is wherein the patients would have had only disease of the nipple, but there is no lump in the breast. And they need not be having invasive carcinoma also, or invasive, carcinoma in situ also, but only the nipple would have had the disease per se, and the patient would have had all the symptoms, that is, as I said earlier, this nipple retraction and discharge from the nipple, and that's the only symptoms, and there's no other lump either in the breast or in the axilla. This goes into staging of TIS Paget's. And we have staging of T1, T2, T3, and T4. Coming to T1, any tumor of, as I said earlier, the tumor size has to be measured. Now, this classification discusses which stage it goes into. T1 is wherein the tumor is less than 2 centimeters, that is less than 20 mm in dimension. In T1, we have subclassification, that is T1MI, that is micrometastasis, that is less than 1 millimeter in greatest dimension. T1A, which is tumor of more than 1 millimeter, but it will be less than 5 millimeter in greatest dimension. Here, if in case suppose patient has disease of 1 to 1.9 millimeter, we have to ground of 2 millimeter. And T1B is wherein tumor of more than 5 millimeter, but it will be less than 10 mm, that is 1 centimeter in greatest dimension. And we have T1C, that is tumor more than 10 millimeter, but less than or equal to 20 millimeter in greatest dimension, that is tumor of 1 to 2 centimeter in size. Next slide, please. Now T2, we have tumor of more than 20 mm but less than 50 mm in greatest dimension, that is tumor of size 2 to 5 centimeters, which go into stage, T2. And T3 is any tumor more than 50 mm, that is more than 5 centimeters greatest dimension. This T3 tumors are very much big in size. So from T3 patients, whoever comes in and presents with more than 5 centimeters, we usually manage with patient giving chemotherapy. It's also called as neoadjuvant chemotherapy, which decreases the size of the disease and also prevents the distant metastasis, and then followed by surgery and radiation. When it is earlier stages, that earlier tumor staging, that is T2 and T1, whatever it is, patient will go directly for surgery, then followed by chemotherapy or radiation therapy, depending upon the histopathology report. Now T3, T4, we have 4 subtypes in T4. T4A, wherein extension to the chest wall. As I said earlier, I discussed about involvement of the pectoralis major minor muscle, and also the what I had shown, like serratus anterior muscle and intercostal muscles, when they are involved, it goes into T4A, that is stage 4 directly. And T4B is involvement of the skin, that is the patient would have had presented with ulcer, or there can be satellite nodules, as I discussed earlier, or edema of the skin would have been there. With all this ulceration and all those things, that goes into T4B, and also patient's skin wouldn't have been pinchable when you pinch it. That at that point of time, we can diagnose the disease. Staging at that moment only, and it goes into T4B. And T4C is tumor staging, wherein both patient has both the chest wall involvement also and also skin involvement also. So that goes into T4C. And T4D is inflammatory carcinoma. Inflammatory carcinoma is wherein patients present with, they need not present with lump at all, but there will be purity orange with also, there will be increased rise of temperature over the breast, and also there will be complete redness and erythema over the breast. That goes into staging of T4D. Next slide, please. Now, as of now, I discussed about tumor staging, that is T staging. Now, this is the N staging, that is nodal staging. We have nodal staging, we have both clinical also and pathologically also. I'll just discuss about clinically, and pathological I'll just tell in brief basically. Clinically is when as the patient comes to you with and you examine, and that is the clinical nodal staging. And also if in case you get a MRI done and say whatever the imaging done, with that goes for clinical staging. Pathological staging is after surgery what you get done and the patient comes with histopathology report, that is what is pathological staging. So in that we add the what I see that C, you can see the CN0, CN1 and all those things, that goes for clinical staging. And when it comes, when you add a prefix of P, and that is like PN0, PN1, that is pathological staging. Now coming to nodal staging, we have CN category and CN criteria. First is CNX, that is regional lymph nodes cannot be assessed. In the sense, patient would have got previously removed elsewhere, only the lymph nodes. Basically, if in case the patient would have had any infection in the armpit and underarm, or anything in the upper limb, right or left upper limb, the patient would have got the lymph nodes removed unknowingly. And usually all the doctors wouldn't have had the exact information of the cancer. As per I have seen, there are very much less knowledge of the cancer, about the cancer for all the doctors as I've seen, and they wouldn't have managed properly for the patients. So that patients would have, it's very difficult to manage such patients, and we won't be knowing how many lymph nodes have been removed, and what are the levels of lymph nodes removed, and what can be the further treatment per se. Because in case the lymph nodes, depending upon the lymph nodes assessment, the number of lymph nodes, and also the lymph nodes, we have extra capsule extension, we say. And the lymph nodes, as every lymph node has capsule, when the lymph disease would have crossed the capsule, they have to give the patients, all the patients, chemotherapy also and radiation therapy also. So depending upon this nodal staging, we can assess the further treatment of the patients. So CN0 is no regional lymph node metastasis. That is in the sense that we can't make out the lymph nodes at all, either by clinically or by imaging any of the modality. And CN1 is metastasis to movable ipsilateral level 1 and 2 axillary lymph nodes. As I had said, level 1 lymph node, which is below the pectoralis major muscle, and level 2 is beneath the pectoralis major muscle. But in that, the lymph nodes will be movable. In the sense, they'll be mobile. They won't be fixed to the underlying muscle. And in CN1 only, we have subtype called CN1MI, that is micrometastasis, wherein it will be just less than, in the sense you can make out about 200 cells of present. In the sense, cancer cells wouldn't be more than 200 cells. And also the lymph node, the metastasis wouldn't be more than 0.2 mm. Next slide, please. Next, further clinical nodal staging, we have CN2. That is, in that we have subtypes N2A and N2B. N2A is involvement of the level 1 and level 2 lymph nodes. It is ipsilaterally, basically, it's like on the same side where the patient present with breast lump. But here the lymph nodes would have been matted or fixed to one another. Where earlier we had seen N1, it is like mobile lymph nodes, but here the lymph nodes will be fixed or matted, or else adherent to the adjacent structures also. And N2B is, we have lymph nodes, only the internal mammary lymph nodes will be involved, but not the axillary lymph nodes. That is N2B. N3, we have metastasis to the lymph nodes into either infraclavicular or both level 1 and level 2 with internal mammary also, or supraclavicular. In N3, the other subtypes are N3A, N3B, and N3C. N3A is wherein only the ipsilateral infraclavicular lymph nodes would have been involved, but no other lymph nodes would be present. N3B is presence of both internal mammary lymph nodes also, and also axillary lymph nodes also. N3 is patients would have had no other lymph nodes but supraclavicular lymph nodes. This goes directly into stage 4. Next slide, please. Now this is the M staging, that is distance metastasis. In case the patient would have had disease anywhere else apart from the local local region, that is either into the brain or liver or lung or any skeletal metastasis that goes into favor of metastasis staging. In that we have M category and M criteria. M0 is wherein there is no clinical or radiological evidence of distant metastasis. This is done usually with bone scan. We do bone scan or PET CT scan, or else like brain MRI can be done for this metastasis staging. And in that we have subtypes of CM0I plus or M1. In CM0I plus, it is like no clinical or radiological evidence of distant metastasis in the presence of tumor cells or deposits not larger than 0.2 millimeter detected microscopically or by molecular techniques in circulating blood. In the sense, we do liquid biopsy for the patients, and in that, if in case you see a cancer cells in them, then we go into staging of CM0I plus, or else M1 is wherein distant metastasis is clinically evident, or the patient have got scanned done and that shows that there is metastasis. Next slide, please. This is in short about TNM staging for breast cancer. It is tumor size T, N nodal size, and M metastasis. Tumor size we have T1 which is 0 to 2 centimeters, T2 which is 2 to 5 centimeters, T3 is more than 5 centimeters, and T4 there is involvement of the skin or chest wall or inflammatory carcinoma. Nodal staging we have N0, N1, N2, and N3. That is N0 in very basically surgeons can't feel the nodes at all. N1 is surgeon can feel the swollen nodes, and nodes are not much bigger in size. N2 is nodes are very much swollen in size and very much big in size. And N3 wherein it is located near the bones in the sense supraclavicular basically in the sense level N3C what I said earlier. And metastasis we have M0, M1. That is M0 is wherein the nodes, I mean there is no metastasis at all, and M1 wherein there is metastasis either by macrometastasis, that is by liquid biopsy what you find, or else by imaging or clinically with the clinical patient's symptoms which we assess by. Next slide, please. Coming to the management, we have two types of surgeries, that is breast conservation surgery and also mastectomy. Breast conservation surgery is because wherein if in case patients would have, no person wants to lose their any organ for that matter. So in that case, we go into breast conservation surgery wherein only the lump along with a margin of 2 centimeters is taken out to prevent the further recurrence for the patient. In the breast conservation surgery, we have different types, that is quadrantectomy, wide excision, and also lumpectomy, that is local excision. Quadrantectomy is wherein earlier it was followed wherein only the entire quadrant, where the quadrants were there, only that was removed. Wide excision is wherein the entire breast was removed, but only the skin and nipple was saved. And lumpectomy is wherein now, which is recently followed, it is wherein the tumor, what you see, along with 2 centimeters of the margin is removed. In mastectomy, we have variations, that is radical mastectomy, wherein the entire breast tissue is removed, and also the pectoralis minor and major muscles are removed, and also the lymph nodes, that is level 1 to 3, what I discussed earlier in relation to the pectoralis major muscle will be removed. The other type of mastectomy is modified radical mastectomy, wherein removal of the entire breast is done along with the pectoralis minor muscle, and also only level 1 and 2 lymph nodes are removed, wherein level 3 lymph nodes are not at all touched at all, and pectoralis major muscle is spared, because when pectoralis major muscle is removed, there is increased lymphedema for the patient, and also the movement of the limb will be difficult. So in MRM is the most common surgery followed as of now, wherein only the breast tissue and minor muscle and also level 1, 2 and lymph nodes will be removed. Next slide, please. Coming to the third type of surgery, that is total or simple mastectomy. We remove the entire breast tissue with pectoralis minor muscle, but here there is no lymph node dissection. With this, it's very difficult to assess the lymph node status, whether the patient's lymph nodes have disease or not, and further management of the treatment will be very difficult. And we have skin sparing mastectomy, wherein it preserves the skin of the breast for enhanced reconstructive cosmetic outcomes. In the sense, if patients want, here we have both nipple and also skin sparing. Since underneath the tissue will be removed, but the skin and the nipple will be preserved for reconstruction the patient would have got any implants done in the future for maintaining their cosmesis, we do this procedure. And total skin sparing mastectomy is wherein it preserves both skin and nipple area complex completely for enhanced reconstructive outcome. And we have implants also and expanders also. Depending upon the patient's wish, we ask for what they want and their comfortability also and financial status also. We ask what they want and we do the reconstruction procedures. Next slide, please. Coming to contraindications to BCT, that is breast conserving surgery, what I told earlier. In the sense, here we don't remove the entire breast tissue completely. Only the chest wall wouldn't have been preserved. Here, that is done wherein, if in case the disease is multicentricity, in the sense, in all the quadrants of the breast, the tumor is there, and ratio of tumor size to breast, that is, if in case breast is very small and the tumor is very large, we can't do breast conservation surgery for such patients. And diffuse microcalcifications is wherein you get an ultrasonography done or else digital mammography done, and there are microcalcifications, and those microcalcifications can be removed if in case with surgery, that's well and good. In case it is diffuse microcalcifications, with breast conservation surgery, we can't remove all the calcifications. So that patient would have gone for entire complete mastectomy. So for them, this is a contraindication. And persistently close or positive margins is wherein patients goes for surgery, they go for breast conservation surgery, and histopathological examination report we see, and it comes as again positive margins. The ink margin shouldn't be positive at all. When you leave 2 centimeters of the tumor, apart from the tumor, when you leave 2 centimeters of the margin, the 2 centimeters of margin shouldn't have the disease at all. If that is the case, then you can go for breast conservation therapy. Otherwise, the patient will go for mastectomy. And what are the patients who are more prone for mastectomy are patients with intralobular carcinoma, patients with less than 35 to 40 years old who are more prone for recurrence, and diffuse or multiple close or positive margins. And as I said earlier, previous breast radiation, because they would have already got radiation done, and there's no point in doing again breast conservation surgery because there are again more chances of getting recurrence and also failure of the treatment. And pregnancy as such, we never go for breast conservation surgery because patients would have had first thing is the fetus would have received the radiation and also not feasible for treatment, and patients would have got further chances of increased risk of recurrence. So we advise them to go for mastectomy and then breast conservation surgery. And coming to autoimmune disease, we have called scleroderma and also systemic lupus erythematosus. That scleroderma is an absolute contraindication for breast conservation surgery because there are more chances of recurrence either in the ipsilateral breast or also on the contralateral breast. Whereas lupus, that is systemic lupus erythematosus, is a relative contraindication for breast conservation. Depending upon the patient's age criteria and also the tumor size criteria, we can go either into BCT or mastectomy. Next slide, please. These are the diagrams what shows what and all will be done. Earlier, what was followed was quadrantectomy. In the sense, like only the particular quadrant of the breast was removed. And next image shows a simple mastectomy wherein the entire breast tissue is removed, but the lymph nodes will not be removed. And the next image shows the wherein with MRM, that is modified radical mastectomy, that is pectoralis major muscle will be preserved for this patient, but the breast tissue with the lymph nodes will be, with the level 1 and 2 lymph nodes will be removed. And radical mastectomy is wherein the entire breast tissue with level 1, 2, 3, all the lymph nodes will be removed. And along with that, even the pectoralis major and minor muscle also will be removed. That is done when the patients would have had T4A or T4B tumors, in the sense the muscle would have been invaded with the tumor. So those patients will go for radical mastectomy with chest muscle also removed. Next slide, please. Coming to the lymph node dissections, we have axillary lymph node dissection. Level 1 and 2, what was removed earlier, as I said, that is MRND, that is modified radical neck dissection, with also axillary lymph node dissection. And apart from axillary lymph node dissection, we also have sentinel lymph node biopsy, which I will tell next in the next slide. That replaces the axillary lymph node, because axillary lymph node dissection as such can go for all the patients, but when the patient doesn't have axillary lymph nodes, as I discussed earlier, some patients would have not presented with axillary lymph nodes at all, but there are chances of further positivity or recurrence of the patients in the future with axillary lymph node positivity. So for such patients, we need not go for all the patients. We need not go for axillary lymph node dissection. For them, we do something called as sentinel lymph node biopsy, wherein patients will be performed with the biopsy, and then we discuss. We decide upon that particular point of time whether further, patient would require further axillary lymph node dissection and radiation or not. And that's what, as I said, performed with injection of radiotracer, that is technetium-99 is a radiotracer or radioisotope what we use for this testing, that is sentinel lymph node biopsy, and also methylene blue dye we inject into the tumor. And in this process, there can be chances of false negative rate of about 2 to 12%, but not all the patients will fail for it. But at the same time, there's advantages of sentinel lymph node biopsy also. But after sentinel lymph node biopsy, patient will either go into completion with either axillary lymph node dissection or radiotherapy is a must. Suppose sentinel lymph node biopsy is not positive, then patient will need only breast conservation therapy, BCS, that's all. But if in case sentinel lymph node biopsy is positive, only 1 or 2 lymph nodes are positive, then we have to go for complete axillary lymph node dissection or radiotherapy has to be given for the patient. In case axillary lymph node dissection is not done, patient will go for only radiation therapy for the axilla, in the sense for the lymph nodes. Next slide, please. This is a sentinel lymph node biopsy, as I said earlier. Here you can see the tumor has been injected with the radioactive substance, that is what I said, technetium-99 isotope, radioisotope. Either that can be injected either to the tumor directly or into the nipple, around the nipple area complex. You inject the dye and also the isotope. And what happens is, wherein when you inject this dye, the lymph nodes, in this echelon, you call it as first echelon lymph node. In the sense, like whichever the lymph nodes is the first drainage for any organ for that matter, it is called as sentinel node. The definition of sentinel node is the first drainage of the disease to the primary lymph node is called sentinel node. So when you inject this dye into the tumor or into the nipple area complex, when the disease is there per se, so it would have drained into the lymph nodes. So this dye indicates that which lymph nodes has been involved, how many lymph nodes has been involved, and which lymph nodes has been involved. So after injecting this dye, we take a probe with the gamma camera and we test the lymph nodes involved. And you can see, because anything, sir?
Nothing, madam. You can continue.
Yeah, because the lymph nodes, what the anatomy of lymph nodes is, because of the presence of the valves, there's unidirectional motion of the lymph fluid as such. So when the lymph node is involved, you can make out, in the sense, further lymph nodes, if in case any other lymph nodes would have been not involved, so those lymph nodes wouldn't have been stained at all. As you can see in the diagram, only the few lymph nodes which are in the blue in color shows that these lymph nodes are involved. The other lymph nodes which are in green in color wouldn't have been involved at all. So in that case, the patients need not go for complete surgery, that is breast conservation surgery or MRM with lymph node dissection at all. They can just go for the tumor, removal of the tumor with sufficient margins, and lymph node dissection wouldn't have been required, because removal of the lymph nodes causes further problem for the patients with lymphedema and also swelling in the arm, and patient would have been difficulty in raising the upper limb, and basically the patient's quality of life will be very bad. So this sentinel lymph node biopsy is a boon for the doctors, basically surgical oncologists, because as soon as the patient will be taken for the surgery, they inject this dye and breast lump will be removed, and then patient will be sent for the, if in case this can be done only in cases where there is the hospital has the facility of PET CT scan or that of the gamma camera, and that will be, the patient will be immediately sent from the OT to the PET CT machine or the gamma camera machine, and then the lymph nodes will be assessed whether which lymph nodes has been involved, and the nuclear medicine physician who would have assessed with the gamma probe, they assess which lymph nodes are being involved. They take it into consideration. What is the activity in that? This is what are the lymph nodes is involved, in the sense which is blue in color. They assess what lymph nodes activity, in the sense we have injected a radioisotope. So what is the radioisotope in that and the activity of that lymph node? And they give the information to the surgical oncologist that this is the activity in the tumor and this is the activity in the lymph nodes. And thereby this helps the surgical oncologist to decide which lymph nodes has to be removed and what is the status of the disease. So with this, we can further move into further progression of the treatment. That is, in case lymph nodes is involved, we can go in for axillary lymph node dissection. Or if in case only less lymph nodes are involved, like only one or two lymph nodes are involved, patient can go for only radiation therapy, which will address the tumor per se. Next slide, please. Coming to the complications of surgery, that is, we have bleeding, pain, infection, lymphedema, and also serum formation. Or as I said, lymphedema can be prevented with sentinel lymph node biopsy, and serum formation is most common. And therein, we usually ask them to come every 1 week and ask them to get drained whatever the liquid has been collected underneath the breast tissue. And infection, which will be prevented by patient who have started on with antibiotics just before the day of surgery, so that we prevent the infection. And pain also will be decreased with adequate painkillers, NSAIDs. And bleeding as such will be usually doesn't happen, but very rare cases. So for today, as of now, I have completed all the treatment modalities. Since like until surgery part I have completed. Further, I have to go into the medical oncology, that is chemotherapy aspects, hormonal management of the patient, whether the patient is either premenopausal or postmenopausal. That is, when whether the patient has attained menopause. In case the patient has not attained menopause, what is the treatment management? And in case patient has attained the menopause, what is the treatment management? And also the radiation part of it. This is what kind of radiation will be given for the patient, and who needs radiation, and what are the side effects of both chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Any doubts, please?
Thank you, Dr. Vidya, for a wonderful session. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Now delegates can raise their questions. Hello, any questions? Please unmute their mics and they can raise the question.
I think Dr. Subhashini raised her hand. Dr. Subhashini?
Dr. Subhashini?
Yes, Dr. Subhashini, what is your doubt?
No. That was done by mistake actually. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any doubts?
Dr. Vidya.
Yeah.
You were talking about mastectomy, the many different processes. What is the approximate expenditure from the patient side for these processes?
It all depends upon the institute what you go for actually. If in case it would have been a government institute, any treatment for that matter wouldn't cost you much, because there would have been all this Vajpayee or the scheme which helps in the patients, wherein the patient would have received complete, in the sense it is basically zero billing for the patients. Patient need not pay anything for that matter. Starting from the investigations, including the consultation for the doctors or for the treatment per se. It can be either surgery or chemotherapy or radiation. The patient need not pay at all. But when it comes to the private institute, it goes for surgery will go into almost about 70,000-80,000, and further chemotherapy will go into 1.5 to 2 lakhs, and also radiation will go into 1.5 lakh.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much.
We'll wait for another 5 minutes for any queries.
Ma'am, and in the lactation stage, there are so many women who complain of there is first kind of formation.
That is completely
is
different.
that
It's called as breast abscess or lactating mastitis. It is called lactation mastitis. In the sense, the production of the milk will be very more. at the same time the breast would have got infected with when during the because of infection, the breast would have got infected completely. So there will be more lactation at the same time, but the patient would have got fever and other symptoms also. So in that case, if in case you just do incision and drainage, and then followed by antibiotic, basically IV antibiotics instead of oral antibiotics, that will take over. I mean, that will take care of all the symptoms whatever the patient would have got.
Okay, okay.
That is
Ma'am,
nowhere related to breast cancer basically. That's completely different.
Hello,
Ma'am,
madam.
yeah, I'm having a small doubt. Like, we are come across with a lot many of fibroadenomas in the breast. So
Okay.
actually, I missed initial section because of my connection, poor connection. So I did not got the initial uh, how to.
Fibroadenoma is very benign tumor, ma'am, basically.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. It is a
yeah,
benign like.
it's also called as rat in the breast or mouse in the breast, we call it, because it will be mobile anywhere in the breast and it's very difficult to find out such things. Only if in case the size is more, you can make out the tumor. I mean, since it's benign, right? So in case you just remove the lump, whatever the adenoma we see, that is much more enough. We need not go for further treatment at all. But once in a while, I think about once in 1 year or 2 years, you need to go for follow-up, and then we can proceed ahead. Depending upon the follow-up investigations, we can go for further management of the patient.
Yeah, ma'am. What are the chances like converting like fibroadenoma into CA?
That's what, ma'am. Over a period of 10 years, there are chances about 20 to 30% chances of converting into C.
If it is later stage like menopause stage, if they are having fibroadenomas,
That
I
doesn't
got
matter,
one.
ma'am.
That does not matter. Okay.
Either of it, fibroadenoma, since any benign tumors takes about 5 to 10 years for turning into malignant stage. But at the same time, benign tumors means like it can, in case it is like hyperplasia or carcinoma in situ has a more less period of time to convert into malignancy than benign tumors.
Okay, ma'am. Fine.
Since like benign tumors takes about 5 to 10 years, whereas carcinoma in situ takes about 1 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years maximum to convert it into malignant tumors.
Ma'am, if multiple, like one patient I'm having multiple, she does not having any breast material at all. So what are the chances? I'm right now she's on Ayurvedic medicine. She's doing well. But
Okay.
what are the chances? Like she's a young only, like 30 years she's having one girl baby of 2 years.
Okay.
Like cases.
I don't get your question completely, ma'am.
Actually, one patient I'm treating who is having multiple fibroadenomas in her bilateral breast even.
Okay.
One is bigger sizes of 6.5 centimeter.
No.
Now it
She
is,
has to go for surgery, ma'am. She has to get her
ma'am,
entire
she is
breast.
not at all having breast material. Complete, we are having this benign tumors only.
That's what the entire breast has to be removed for her.
Yeah, ma'am. But I'm treating, she's doing well actually. Right breast, all the tumors are, benign tumors are gone actually. But what are the cases? Because it is coming again and again. I treated her 2 years back.
I'm telling it is called as, this is a benign tumor. It's also called as phylloid tumors, what we tell actually as.
Okay.
I had seen a patient recently, about 2 months back. She's a 24-year-old female who is not married at all, and she usually presented in 2019 with a tumor in the left breast. That 2019 she got just whatever the lump was seen, that was just removed, and that was in Bellary. What she got it done, and she was sent back telling nothing is there, so you can go. Okay, fine. Then after about 6 to 7 months, she was fine. Again, she started developing that one more tumor in the same breast, that is left breast only, which gradually increased in size, and that was about almost 15 to 17 centimeters of size.
Oh.
After about 6 months, because of lockdown, the worst part was because of lockdown, she couldn't go anywhere and she couldn't get the treatment done properly. So the entire left breast was completely involved with 16 to 17 centimeters of size of the tumor, and unfortunately we had to remove the entire breast, and later reconstruction was done. And she had, as you said, the same patient on the right side also, she had 3 lymph nodes. So that as of now, we have planned for left breast, she has got the entire breast removed. Right breast, we just removed the lymph nodes, the fibroadenoma as such, which is a large, she also has multiple fibroadenomas. When the largest were 3 of them, it was about 2 into 3 centimeters and 1.5 into 2 centimeters. So only those has been removed. But now she'll be on regular follow-up because there are chances of further converting or recurrence of these tumors further. And we are giving radiation treatment for her on the left side, but right side will be only on follow-up for every 3 to 6 months with mammography and MRI, and then further we'll take care with the whatever the imaging findings comes and the biopsy report comes, we'll go for the treatment further.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I think, ma'am, she needs mastectomy done better. That would be better for her. If in case you want to see her for the further good prognosis and quality of life, I think mastectomy is a better option for her.
Okay, ma'am. But she is doing well with Ayurvedic medicine, ma'am, actually. Right breast, all these benign tumors are gone, actually. Only left breast, which is bigger one, is reduced to 2 centimeter, which was 6.5. Now it is reduced to 2.
You got her
2
biopsy.
centimeter.
You got her biopsy done, ma'am?
No, ma'am. Biopsy not done. She is not also ready for mammography also, but with only scanning.
My suggestion is better get a mammography done with biopsy, and with biopsy report, if in case it shows like benign still, you can go for your treatment further. Otherwise, I think better option would be mastectomy.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. I will take this.
No problem.
Yeah.
Dr. Deepa, you
Hello,
are
ma'am.
asking something?
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. I just wanted to know it would be beneficial if they go for radiation then go for surgery?
No. Always patients will go for instance because see, basically we have
Initial stage.
Pardon?
Initial stage.
Yeah, that's what. Any tumor for that matter, it's not only breast per se. Any tumor and anywhere location for that matter, first treatment would be local removal of the disease as such. And radiation therapy also and surgery is also local treatment. Whereas chemotherapy is basically a systemic management where you prevent the cancer to spread anywhere for that matter. It can be either in the sense brain or liver or lungs or any bone for that matter. And what is the surgical management is the most preferred one because surgery, what is it done? Radiation is what in you they kill the cancer cells, yes, but at the same time surgery what it does, it removes the disease as such, so that there is nothing left behind. In the sense there are cells, cancer cells would be there, which is micrometastasis and microscopic and which we can't see, but removing the disease as such is a better option for any earlier stage for that matter. It can be either oral cavity or breast or any GI tumors also, and then go for further management with the histopathological report. And radiation as such we don't give for initial stages at all. Only in cases of, as you said, again, radiation treatment only is done, that too followed by surgery, wherein we don't give chemotherapy for the patient. Suppose patient would have had early stage of a tumor in the tongue and also breast, as you said, in the initial stage, that is T1 or T2, we do surgery, in the sense remove the disease which has more cancer cells, and then do localized radiation treatment also, which I'll be discussing in the future further. And patient need not receive chemotherapy for such patients at all. Well, localized radiation will take care of the cancer cells.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you. One more question, madam. Research related. Did you find any connection between the tumor or benign or malignant cancer related to any of the hormonal condition of that of the uterus?
That's what I told you. ERPR positive state and HER2 positive, because endometrial cancer will be most hereditary cancer, what we see, and also ovary cancer also. But endometrium is very less compared to that of ovary. When the patients will have BRCA, BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations, they have more chance of getting ovary cancer also. So I think you would have heard about Angelina Jolie and many other
Yes.
this thing, Hollywood heroines and all, they go for
Yeah.
prophylactic mastectomy also and prophylactic oophorectomy also, because there are chances of they getting further cancer in the future stages, even though they would have got breast cancer and they would have got removed with BRCA mutations, they go into oophorectomy also. So this prevents the further disease process. And endometrium
Yes.
cancer is not much, but more of ovary is more. Endometrial cancer can be seen, that is very less compared to that of ovary. Ovary is most common compared to endometrium. That is what is the percentage says. And thereby there is prophylactic mastectomy also. In case patient has ovarian cancer with BRCA mutations,
Tamoxifen induced chemo.
Tamoxifen, yes, tamoxifen is, yeah, that's what I said. What I said earlier, premenopausal and postmenopausal, that matters, I said, right? When the patients
Yeah.
are premenopausal, and we also give tamoxifen for them, because if in case their hormonal status is positive, that is ERPR positive, we give tamoxifen for them, and we have to monitor them every now and then, and that with ultrasound, abdomen and pelvis, and also endometrial thickness has to be assessed in that. In case suppose endometrial thickness is getting increased over a period of time, then we switch over to other hormonal management, that is called anastrozole and letrozole, that is aromatase inhibitors. So those prevent the further progression of the disease if in case the patient have got endometriosis or endometrial hyperplasia, and thereby they prevent the further disease process, this endometrial carcinoma in the future.
So at this time, Ayurvedic doctors can come into picture, right? As per your experience.
I don't know how come Ayurveda treatment works. I'm very sorry
No.
about it, because no studies have been compared with radiation, allopathy and Ayurveda, but I don't have any what to tell. I'm not against Ayurveda as such.
Correct.
But
Okay.
anything for that matter, but if in case patient's quality of life is good and patient's disease is decreased and patient lives peacefully
The
without any problem,
progression,
ultimately that
the,
is what is
yeah,
required.
the progression of the disease can be arrested, right?
Yeah, that's what. In case the progression of disease
Yes.
is arrested, that's well and good.
Yes. Thank you, madam. Nice
No
talking
problem.
to you.
Any more questions?
Actually, breast carcinoma is a very big topic. It goes into, I think, week. I think about 5 to 6 sessions also is not required. It's not sufficient at all. But since, like ma'am told, try to cover within one session, I requested ma'am to cover one more session, take one more session to cover the chemotherapy, hormonal treatment also, radiation part of it. So as much as possible, I try to cover with the next week with the radiation treatment, chemotherapy, and also hormonal treatment. But it is a very vast topic. It is.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We are seeing like it is very vast.
It's like ocean,
And
ma'am. Basically, I'm just
yes,
trying
yes,
to cover a small part of it. I think it is
yes,
useful for you people.
Yes, ma'am.
definitely, ma'am. Yeah, it's very nice session, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure.
Okay. I think no more questions. Everybody has cleared. Now, anything, ma'am? You are saying something, Dr. Vidya, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, vote of thanks by Dr. Divya. Over to you, Divya.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Geeta, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Vidya, ma'am, for your presence. Can others please mute? Anyone has a question?
Yeah. Pallavi?
Yeah, please continue.
Dr. Pallavi, any question?
Hello. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
Vidya ma'am, I have a question for you. See,
Yeah.
the taking the hormonal injections, it could be during the IVF treatment or during menopause or during the problems with any of the menstrual cycle. So what will be the impact on the this thing? Like, does it have any particularly affecting the targeting cells which causes because like we have the hormonal medicines, like it could be a progesterone or estrogen or anything like follicle stimulating something like that, right? So which is like having the more effect on causing the CA of the breast, like?
Basically, OCPs. OCPs have more effect on causing CA of the breast, and that too, it is not just for about 6. I mean, patient some would have taken for 3 months, 6 months, and all those things. But cancer as such doesn't happen within a short period of time. In sense, anything side effects will not happen over a short period of time. For a long period, in the sense, the patient have got exposure for the any risk factor for a long period of time, that will progress into a cancer. So,
Yeah,
patient with
like
smoking for a
long
long period
term
of time.
means like what would you mean, like
I
long
think
term of about 6 months or years together,
no,
or
it is like 5 years, more than 5 years.
more than 5 years if at all
Yeah.
they are on the hormonal
OCPs basically.
yeah. Not like OCPs, not only I'm talking about the OCPs, apart from that, like
Plus,
even
as you said about, I mean, treatment for, you said about IU, intrauterine treatment.
yeah.
Hormone replacement therapy, is it?
Hormone replacement therapy doesn't cost much basically, but hormone replacement therapy over a very long period. I mean, we usually never prefer hormone replacement therapy for all the women. It all depends upon, because there are side effects of osteoporosis and all those things. So maximum is about 1 year we prefer hormone replacement therapy. Following that, we usually ask them not to take it, because hormone replacement therapy, as you said, for a longer period of time, again it has chances of, it's a risk factor basically for causing CA breast and also endometrium, CA endometrium also.
Which hormonal therapy is more harmful comparatively?
Progesterone.
Progesterone is harmful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Geeta ma'am, can I continue?
Yes, Deva, you can continue.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya ma'am, for your presence. The knowledge you shared today on practical aspects, the identification of staging of tumors, the nodal staging or the pathological staging of CA breast, as well as the anatomical knowledge, the epidemiology, and the treatment approach which we discussed today is very valuable for us doctors. The increasing number of CA breast in both sexes is something we doctors should be aware of, and considering the risk factors, I would only reiterate how much important it is to spread awareness among the general public for adapting to healthy holistic lifestyle, which is where Ayurvedic doctors play a key role. And also understanding the clinical presentation of CA breast at which exact stage it is equally important for any practicing Vaidya. Saying this on behalf of Rao's team, I, Dr. Divya, would like to extend my gratitude to you for being so generous to share in detailed knowledge. Thank you, ma'am, for making some time for our platform. And we wish you all the best for your future, and also would love to see you soon with the next session and also some clinical presentations, ma'am. Thank you all other doctors who made your time today for our with this, I hand over to Dr. Geeta, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Divya. Now we'll end up the session, I think. Dr. Shakuntala ma'am. Dr.
Yes, Geeta.
Shakuntala ma'am, shall we wind up?